got to persevere through to the end. Hello and welcome to the new series where we're going to paint up Ahriman. Fantastic model from Games Workshop. Straight away getting it out of the box, you can realise it's going to be a real pain to paint if we build it all in one go. So this first video is going to be a quick breakdown of how I've prepared it for painting. Big shout out to the Ministry of Warhammer, who already had a video up showing their sub-assembly process for this model, and I agree pretty much with everything that they did, so I'm going to link it in the description so you can check out their video where they start off clipping everything off the frame, pointing out some of the delicate areas of the model. I'll do the same thing here as well, and show you some of the preparation that I've done, going a little bit of a step further really, where I've sanded down some areas, filled a few areas, just pointing out the bits that are going to need a bit of extra work really. So yeah, as we can see, lovely model. Here's everything prepared for priming. So you can see quite a number of pieces here. So was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 if you count the two small pieces there. So I'll just go through really and sort of show which pieces we've built and which pieces we're keeping separate. Here's the main body. Big join line down here, so spent quite a bit of time sanding that down. That should paint up nice and smooth now. Same this side. Big join line down here. Tried to sand that down with a bit of wet and dry paper as well. A little bit harder to get under there, but I think we've done a good enough job really. Another join line here, but that'll be covered by the gun, so I haven't worried too much about that. So bits to look out for when you're building this model. This part here is delicate. If you're sort of holding it while scraping the model, be really careful you don't put your thumb on that and snap it off. So that's the main part of the model. Main reason why we sort of separate this from the cloak is that, you know, once the cloak's on the back there, you're not going to be able to get under here very well at all. That leads us onto the cloak. Let's have a look at this piece. Really nice piece this. I don't know why Games Workshop built it like this, but there was a huge join line here on a really smooth piece of cloak. I've managed to, through sanding, get rid of near enough all of the join. You can just about see it, and you can see a little bit here where I've had to go back in with some plastic glue and rub it down. But if I turn it around like this, you can probably just about see starting to get really thin here where I've been rubbing it down with wet and dry paper on this side, and then in this side here. So that's as good as I can get it without basically rubbing right through this join. So again, if you're doing the same thing, if I was to do this again, I'd probably fill that area a bit more heavily so that I've got more to work with when it comes to rubbing it down. There you go, just a sort of indication of how far we've got with smoothing out that join line there. I'll put some photos up on screen just to show how bad that join was. I know why they do it is to make this, to allow this sort of 3D nature of the cloak here. I mean, I guess they probably could have fit it on the sprue, and maybe the reason why they do that is to give the people that enjoy building models, maybe more than painting, something to do, but really quite annoying where that join line was. Nothing much else to say about the cloak. Looks really cool, ready to prime. Have a look at the head here, keeping that separate so we can really focus on getting a good paint job on it. And around the back in particular, if you tried to paint it with the model all put together, end up with the backpack kind of covering a bit of the back of the head. It would make it, you know, quite hard to get a good paint job on it. So pretty straightforward really, just need to be really careful when scraping the mould lines off it. See, I've got a little bit of work still to do in there. These bits, really delicate, quite spiky as well, so you've got to be a bit careful with your fingers. Lovely detail, but quite delicate. Just need to be really careful. That's really all there is to it when it comes to that piece. Backpack, not much to say about that really, other than a lot of cleanup needed. Just on some of these, I can see a little bit there actually that I haven't quite managed. Haven't quite got that bit there. I don't know if you can see that, just in there. Hardly noticeable. I thought I'd got all those, so that would jump out straight away once primed, so I'm going to have to eyeball over all this again just before I do start priming. But not much else to say about that, quite a solid piece, don't need to worry about breaking that piece. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the base. There's the disc, really nice. So that's the underside of the disc there, and then this piece will go into there. Lovely detail on the bottom of the disc, you know, you're hardly going to see that. So yeah, you can see the Zenithal flames coming up here under the disc. That would be quite hard to paint if the other piece was on there. I did think about trying to keep these flames separate because that's still actually going to be quite hard to paint in here. There you go. So where the flames go into the disc, that's still going to be quite hard to paint, but the way this model goes together, you you can't have the flames built properly without them being through the middle of the bottom of the disc piece here, so kind of just had to put up with that. Not too worried about the sort of super glue stains here where I've attached it to the cork. You won't see that when we put it together. Okay, so we're on to the most delicate pieces now. Actually, saying that, we'll just look at these two little pieces first. A book and a pistol. The pistol will sit on here. The book will sit this side. So yeah, you can see why I've taken those off, so you can really get some nice painting going on the robes there. Lovely detail on this piece. Very delicate. Don't know if you can see, I've got a slight sort of stress wound there where I've pressed it while holding the model or getting it off the sprue. I'm not sure which, so that would be very annoying if it snapped there, so just be really careful of that. Some bits of this model that might snap off you can kind of glue back on and get away with, but that's a really flowing piece there, you don't want to snap that off. Two pieces here, they go together right in the middle of the skull, which is a bit of a pain, so rather than filling it with green stuff, I've kind of overfilled it with plastic glue carefully, let it completely dry and then scraped it. Probably will still be a very slight indentation in the middle of the skull there, but I'm happy enough with that, because skulls, you know, do have indentations on them. Yeah, really nice. The right arm and the staff. So yeah, you can just sort of see when you look at the model, if all that was one piece, you'd have a nightmare trying to paint onto the chest piece here with the bits that are hanging off the helmet falling right in front of it. Then the staff would be getting in the way of where your brush is trying to paint over to the book and the robes. It, you know, be really difficult just because of how awesome the model is and how 3D it is. So yeah, just going back to this piece, the most annoyingly delicate bit of the whole model, this bit here. So broken it off just there 3 or 4 times as I've been going around trying to clean it up. What I found I had to do once it had sort of bent off basically, is I cut it through really carefully with the scalpel to get a clean edge, and then just use plastic glue to put it back together. Try and avoid having to do that by, you know, just don't squeeze that on basically. Easier said than done. Like I said, I've done it 3 or 4 times nearly. Yeah, really nice detail on this. As I'm turning it around, I can just see a few lines that need scraping off like here, but I'm not going to try and do it on camera because I'm going to end up breaking that bit off again. So yeah, I can't really put all this together here to sort of show you how the model's going to look once it's all put together, because I've already mounted it on the cork. So that's just a real straightforward case of picking out areas where you know that either there's going to be a plastic glue join or a super glue join, and where putting the pin in isn't going to show on the final paint job. So under the cloak there, totally fine to pin that in there. Under the feet, the usual suspect place. In the joins here, now I wouldn't normally pin sort of like in a join that we know is going to potentially be glued, but that piece there in particular is very deep. It goes in a lot deeper than where you would actually apply the glue. So yeah, that's a good summary of all the pieces for the sub-assembly. Next step will be to get this primed. Probably going to prime it mainly black and then a Zenithal undercoat from above. Don't want a lot of these details. So for example, the horns here, the armor panels, I don't want them really dark. So when we put the Zenithal undercoat on, we will make sure that they're quite light, that it's well lit from above. Don't want them to be too gloomy. So we primed everything with the Vallejo Surface Primer Black, then we've used Vallejo Surface Primer Grey, which is a very, very light grey, from above, 45 degrees maybe, on some of the pieces, at 90 degrees, if there's a reason why we have to catch them, and then we've used some De La Rowney white ink just from above, so you can really see the difference there. Very light from above, some nice contrast from 90 degrees, and then pretty dark underneath. Probably a little lighter than some people might do for their pre-shading, but I really want this model to be quite colourful. Yeah, there's the main piece. You know, it really shows us where we're going to want to have highlights. So across the leg here in particular, the feet, small sculpted pieces of the robe. Yeah, some quite nice transitions there already with the pre-shading on the robe here. Have a quick look at the cloak where the mould line was across here. You can't see it at all now. Very slight area there. It's a little bit darker, but you're really not going to see that when it's painted. So really happy with how that's come out. We also had the line here, the mould line, or again, I can just about see something there, but I don't think we will when we get it painted. Really shows what an awesome sculpt it is actually once you get this pre-shading on. Let's have a quick look at some of the other pieces. So the arms, when they're mounted on the corks, you just need to be careful when you're spraying them, that you're spraying them from the angle they're going to sit on the model. So that's how the arm will be. Very light from above, a lot darker underneath. Yeah, still need to be really careful with this piece here. Yeah, hopefully get this looking really nice and bright. Same with this arm, all the sort of magical flame stuff here. Gonna want that to be emanating from the hand, so we want that nice and light, darker underneath. Might actually need to not have too much shadow on this, because I guess this magical flame would be creating its own light. Not much to say about those pieces, just trying to make sure that we provide those base coat highlights from the right angle. made sure the front of the face is really quite light. From the front there, it's almost like it's completely primed in white. It's going to be a focal point of the model, so we want it to stand out. A little bit darker from underneath, a little bit darker from the back. Backpack, pretty straightforward. Now, I wasn't quite sure about the base, because again, this sort of magical flame will be creating its own light. So this is one of the pieces where, rather than airbrushing just from above with the light grey and the white, did take it in right from the side, because, you know, this needs to be quite vibrant. Yeah, we'll see how that paints up. Again, with the disc, going to want that to be quite colourful, so pretty light on top. Those pieces will go together later, so don't really need to pay much attention to under here with the pre-shading. Yeah, I think that's come out pretty good. Hopefully we'll be able to maintain a decent amount of contrast in the model when we get onto painting it. So at this stage, it always looks really good, and then you start painting it, and you go through a stage where it doesn't actually look as good as what it does right now, and just got to persevere through to the end. I'm imagining that I'm going to end up snapping this off again at some point, so just going to be really careful. Right, well, we'll see how we get on with the painting.